let's start off. I've got a Heat Checks and Hail Mary that's going to come out tomorrow, and I wanted to get your guys' response for this, and I wanted to see what you guys had to say. So here it goes. For the first time in my life, the Illini have a head coach that both Iowa and Wisconsin wish they had. It's a new world out there for Big Ten fans. The Fighting Illini have a strong and well-rounded head football coach at the helm of the program for only the third time since I was born. For the first time in my life, two of the Illini's closest competitors, both Iowa and Wisconsin, would love to have the Illini head coach running their football program. So let's take a look at the coaches of the three schools since 1967. And I have them up there on the screen. And I'm going to say something that sounds a little mean, but from 1967 to 1979, I don't see any of the three schools having a coach with the talent to elevate themselves above the other two schools. And whether it's fair or unfair, let's just say the 70s were tough on all three schools, and none of the coaches would be what anybody would call a keeper. In 1979, Hayden Fry turned up and turned the Hawkeyes around. Then next year, Mike White hit the Big Ten scene and worked his magic for the Illini, turning around the Illini as Fry did for Iowa. White was followed by Makovic, who was a strong coach. Despite the Illini duo of competent coaches, I think one has to give the edge to Fry because he stayed there so long. He had winning ways, and he stayed out of the NCAA doghouse. Then Barry Alvarez arrived in Madison in 1990 and turned the Badgers around. He arguably passed up the Hawkeyes to become the premier non-Ohio State and Michigan team in the Big Ten. Even newcomer Penn State had to deal with the ascension of the Badgers. After Alvarez, Ferentz ruled the roost, although Bielema might have passed him up had he stayed in Madison as opposed to going to Arkansas. Now, as Kirk nears retirement and seems cursed with Iowa teams that have absolutely no offense, and Wisconsin deals with a killer schedule in Fickell's third year, Brett Bielema's name comes up again, having resurrected the Illini football program from the dead and taking the team to an extremely rare 10-win season in 2024. I think it's fair to say that if given the choice, maybe either AD from Iowa or Wisconsin would love to have Brett Bielema as their head coach. Thus, for the first time in my lifetime, the Illini have a clear-cut coaching advantage over both Iowa and Wisconsin in football, and it feels good. Illini fans are expecting to have a great run over the next few years. It's yet another example of the critical need to have the right guy in place as the head coach of a college football team. The Illini have not accomplished that often in their over 100 years of football competition. Josh Whitman has accomplished that in hiring Brett Bielema. Thank goodness. Brad, any thoughts on, am I too over the top on that?
No, I think that's accurate, especially when you consider in the ages of Kirk Ferentz. He's looking he doesn't have much time left. But yeah, I think Bielema is a guy that they would either one want to trade for. The Luke Fickell experiment's been a disaster at this point. When you consider you fire a coach for winning the same number of games that he seems to be winning. Now, is he rebuilding and they're changing the format, whatever? I would venture to say he better have a good year this year because they'll be looking to get rid of him this year. And I think he's a good football coach. I really do. And the right program, he's going to be successful, but that right program may not be Wisconsin. But yeah, Illinois is in a great place. And with the changes in the revenue sharing and the NIL and all those things, it's actually been very beneficial to Illinois as both a football and basketball program.
Ked?
I don't know how you guys feel about it, but is it okay to say sometimes it's okay to have a little luck? And what I mean by that is when Brett Bielema was hired, not a lot of people were excited about the hire. I know Matt has covered football for a long time, and Brett was very successful at Wisconsin. And Mike, we did a podcast, and you remember, I think, Brad, you were there. I was one of the most excited fans in the world only because I wanted a program that was stable. And Brett Bielema he's starting to build a program that's stable. Now, to answer your question, where I live at, I'm friends with a lot of Iowa guys that cover the University of Iowa. And I'm telling you, one guy I want to mention, I'm not trying to plug him, is Tom Kakert, who's very connected with the University of Iowa. when Illinois hired him, he was the first person, regardless if you're an Illinois fan or media member, to call me and said, "Gosh, damn it!" And I said, "What?" He said, "That was the guy that was going to replace Kirk Ferentz because one, he's an Iowa guy. He is not stubborn. Brett just has a system, and Brad just mentioned Kirk Ferentz has a system. He runs a really good system. Mike, you and I are probably the biggest hotheads when it comes to how the offense is being run, but I stopped saying it because at the end of the day, he wins games. And I think when I mentioned Luck, I think Luke Fickell is a hell of a coach. I just do. And I think right now, I don't think Luck's on his side. And because I do think he's a good coach, and Brad mentioned that he better turn around this year. But having said that, Illinois is really lucky. And I think Brett wants to be here. And I love how connected he is with the fans, the media, and with the recruits, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But that's probably my favorite thing about him is the comments and feedback that I get from recruits when they talk about committing to Illinois and why they committed.
Matt?
I wouldn't have gone as far as you, Mike, and say that Illinois has a coaching advantage. I just don't think Illinois has a coaching disadvantage, if that makes any sense. You know what you don't hear out of
Which
Iowa
is a step
at all?
up for Illinois.
No, and I get it. You know what I'm saying? But if that makes sense to everybody, like you get how, okay, if we don't go in, with one strike in the batter's box because of our coaching staff, then that's a win for Illinois if you look at it that way. What I'll say is you don't hear when you talk about if you talk to Iowa fans about their football program, the one thing you don't hear, boy, I wish Kirk would just leave. Like they understand where their lot is in life and how good they have it with Kirk Ferentz and how good they have it with Phil Parker running that defense. And the minute that stops happening, I wonder what happens to Iowa football, to be honest with you. There's a lot of, hey, be careful what you wish for if you want Iowa to score a lot more points, because that doesn't necessarily going to result in Iowa winning a lot more football games. And then with the Wisconsin thing, I'll never understand, and I'll always wonder why Luke Fickell hired the offensive coordinator that he hired to start his tenure in Wisconsin. I don't understand it. The Phil Longo hire makes no absolute sense to me whatsoever. And I think he's eating it now, having to basically backtrack and trying to get Wisconsin back to the identity that they were when they hired Luke Fickell, which they probably should have been doing in the first place. Yeah, I think Bielema is on even ground in terms of trying to win football games each and every Saturday in the fall with both Kirk Ferentz, who I think will go down, and I think he's going to be college football Hall of Fame worthy if he keeps the 60% thing. And then Phil Parker, who I think is the best defensive coordinator in the country. And then Luke Fickell got Cincinnati in the playoff, fellas. So if you think that he's just a dog of a football coach, I got news for you. And nobody has said that on this panel, but I'm just telling you, I think there's ways for Wisconsin to get it back, and he might be the guy to do it, but he also needs to be the guy to do it this year, like Sturdy said. Otherwise, they're gonna get restless in Madison, and they're gonna want to hire the guy in Kansas and bring him home.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. I just thought that what we had, it's been a big change, and Illinois has not been successful in getting the man into the role. I think that Whitman has really done quite a number when you see what's going on in the two basketball programs, the football program.